Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome to Smart 24 TV. I'm Ivan TV Nkana, and this is the Green Economy. To those that have been hooked on and following the 7 p.m. bulletin that's from the office, I'm so grateful and thank you. So to those that are just joining us, once again, welcome to the Green Economy. Now today is one of the special days as the year comes to the fall. 2023, just a few days. Christmas is so near, and then the end of the very year will be on course in a few days from now. But today, we shall be looking into one of those crucial areas. Just like usually, this is the green economy. So we look at cross-cutting issues pertaining energy, pertaining sustainability, pertaining every other cross-cutting and crucial element. So today, we shall be looking into one of those critical areas, energy security. What's energy security? That would be one of the very paramount questions. But that will be answered later on. So the question is, will the different initiatives that we have at hand be positioned to address, one, the growing demand, and then two, the disruptions? Energy, climate change, quite jointly addressed or talked about. And then the global geopolitical contestation. We're looking at the Russia-Ukraine war, one of the very reasons as to why we're having the skyrocketing energy prices. So to that and more will be the conversation tonight. So thank you for joining me. In studio today, I have two very paramount individuals. I have Dr. Bernard Wabukala. He's an energy economist and as well a lecturer at one of the most resilient institutions that addresses climate and energy in Uganda. That's Makerere University Business School. And at the same time, I have a very lovely lady who is an expert in productive use of energy. She's called Sylvia Arakit, Dr. Sylvia Arakit. So, Doctor, to start with you, welcome to Smart 24 TV.
Thank you very much, our host tonight, and good evening, our viewers. Very happy to be here.
I'm glad that you're happy. And then, Dr. Bernard.
Thank you, Ivan. Pleased to be here this evening, and good evening, viewers.
All right. So to start off from a very lighter note, 2023 is coming to fall. Before we look into the very conversational area, which is energy security, and how the different initiatives, we have the energy transition plan in place, we have the review, the energy policy, 2023 policy, that looked at so many things, including broadening the transmission and distribution of energy, electricity, and then including so many other sources, renewable in there, and then how we are meant to utilize the critical minerals that will push the renewable energy agenda. To start from a very lighter note, what has informed your year is coming to fall as far as energy is concerned? What has been that definitive factor?
That's to me?
Yeah, that's to you.
Thank you, Ivan. I'll keep it within the energy space like you've raised it. For me, as we close the year, two issues. One, it had been overdue that we needed to review our energy policy. So I was very happy that in September this year, we actually launched the new energy policy for Uganda, which has arrived with a lot of revisions and new ideas to propel our energy space and the economy forward. The second one, as we close the year, Ivan, is the COP28 that has in Dubai, that has been putting on the agenda energy, environment, and green growth that we are pushing for. The commitments by the several parties and economies that have been enlisted, for me, put us on a spiral to move forward in an expectant future.
Quite interesting, COP and then the review. Dr. Sylvia, do you have the same feeling as far as the year has progressed?
Yes, I would say yes. And besides the review of the energy policy and the COP28, I also was excited about the increasing interest on productive use of electricity.
Okay.
You know, when we talk about sustainability and security, we need to understand that we also have to think about productive use. And I'm actually very happy that during the conference, the Renewable REC 2023, there's quite a lot of a dedicated effort to discuss productive use of electricity and all this expanding demand and seeing how everyone can be included, you know, leaving no one behind.
All right. That's very captivating. REC 23 COP, and then the other element. Now let me dip in just right there. Dr. Bernard, she just talked about the increasing demand for, or the increase in productive use of energy. And then when you look at the definitive metrics for energy security, we are looking at demand itself. We are looking at supply of electricity. And by 2040, we are looking at over 52,000 megawatts. So I'm interested in understanding, if you look at all these factors, population in there, it wasn't the same situation in 1990, 2000. We are looking at over 46 million people. Is the growing population one of the definitive elements as far as we should look at energy security?
Good question and a very critical point on this topic today. Possibly one step back, Ivan, and to our viewers, this animal energy security, the dimension is and the definition is around it. What is it?
Okay.
We are talking of having uninterrupted availability of energy or energy resources. So as an individual or even a country, you are energy secure, one, if it is available physically, two, you can access it, three, you can actually afford it, and four, sustainable use of that energy. If we can tick all those four boxes for a household or even a country, then we say you are energy secure. And that is the broad definition of what we always work with in the context of energy. Now, to your question that you have just raised, population growth. Yes, globally, population growth has been expanding. People have been increasing in terms of numbers from 1950s up to 2020. There has been a growth from two factors. One, for particularly developing countries like Uganda, is the fertility rate, which is the natural rate of production, which has seen us see population go up. But two, over time, expenditures, public expenditures on health, on quality of life have also improved. So these two have seen us see population rise. But what does it mean for developing countries and the context of electricity security when population increases? We see a pressure on governments, on economies to spend on energy just like other social services to meet the needs of this population. And we are seeing this because the demand for energy is you don't produce energy for the sake, it's the population has to use it. So as the population increases, we are looking at more energy demand also rising. The challenge we are seeing, or restraint that we have in developing countries and in Uganda, is issue of access. Is this population accessing the energy that we have today? And those are the implications that we are going to possibly extend as we continue on this discussion.
All right. We are looking at availability, access to affordable energy, among other elements, and then population being one area that we need to look into. Dr. Sylvia, you're an expert in productive use of energy. When we talk about population growth, it comes with collateral. We are looking at demand for energy. And when you look at the reports, they indicate the gross demand has been in regard to use of biomass. You're looking at charcoal, firewood, as opposed to electricity and even oil. So I'm interested in understanding, in your own perspective, as far as PUE goes, what basically outlines productive use of energy?
Okay, thank you very much, Ivan. And to me, when we talk about all these issues, first, population is a driver of energy demand, but only if the population is able to pay for it. Because, I mean, now when we go into productive use, it's the productive use component that actually helps us, empower people to be able to afford it. So in productive use, maybe before we go forward with our conversation, productive use literally means, using electricity services in activities that may be directly or indirectly lead to production of goods and maybe provision of services. And in these activities, we are talking about maybe agriculture, we are talking about commercial services in that case, and also maybe industrial. So if people are able to demand electricity to do commercial agriculture, to provide services, to industrialize, and be able to make some sort of income, then we are talking about productive use. So when we talk about population, growth in population is a potential indicator of demand, but might not necessarily be the actual demand, because population has been growing and the demand has been a little very sluggish in terms of growth. And that sends us a signal that probably maybe we have a population that is poor, and they are not able to afford electricity. And again, when we go back to, say, our poverty indicators in the country, quite out of about 40 to 45 million people now we have in Uganda, about 40% are actually poor, like emotionally poor, meaning that they cannot afford even to fulfill the basic needs. And in that case, they will consider electricity a luxury. So affordability continues to be a problem. And despite maybe population growth, it means we need to empower people to engage in some sort of income generating activities so that they can be able to afford.
When you look at the demand, over I think 61%, the demand tended towards household consumption.
Yes.
So that involves so many things: cooking, lighting, among other elements.
Yes.
I'm interested in understanding, as far as we are heading forward, do the metrics point to a situation where we need to be more careful, whereby the question comes in of energy security?
I would say yes, because quite a number of previous interventions in the energy space were really looking at increasing access at household. And when we talk about household, we are basically looking at lighting and even less of cooking, because if you talk about cooking, over 90% of our population are still using biomass. And biomass is one of those problems that are really, causing climate change and some sort of energy security in one way or the other, So we need to be careful in a way that now most of our access programs need to be intentional, whereby we are looking at how can we, extend beyond just household use to now economic use, whereby people can use the electricity to make some sort of money. And also, in one way or the other, when we talk about access at household level, it also saves, or it contributes to electricity security in one way or the other, because then people can use electricity and maybe move away from the traditional kind of fuels, like maybe candles, say kerosene, which again cause a lot of damage, and also sometimes like the kerosenes are imported products. And we rely on the global market for such products, and they destabilize our security, electricity security. Yes, so for me, I think we need to be a little careful as we are aggressive about electricity access, and look at now the dimension of commercial, economic kind of, feeding into economic activities other than just household access for lighting.
Okay. Dr. Bernard, we are looking at a situation where we are pushing for a transition from reliance on biomass to cleaner energies. And that's why renewable energy is so paramount.
Right.
Pushing for utilization of electricity almost across all sectors. When you look at agriculture and transport, they were the lowest on the chain as far as demand is concerned. Right now, we are looking at things such as e-mobility, calling for more energy. Agriculture, we're looking at mechanization, and then irrigation. And when you look at the global space, you're looking at an 11% increase in demand for renewable energy. As far as Uganda is concerned, the transition, demand, and the security aspect, are we well prepared for what lies ahead?
There might be no short answer to this right away because transition is a process. And in this process, there are issues involved and steps taken. And electrifying all sectors as much as we can for benefits which are economic, which are environmental, global as we see, because we are looking at reducing carbon emissions or greenhouse gas emissions as much as we can, which you have understood or seen as net zero. Net zero doesn't mean zero emissions per se, that we can still emit, but our practices, our energy systems should be able to wipe out the emissions that we generate. Now, for agriculture, like we mentioned, that is the way to go as we industrialize and mechanize agriculture, especially for agrarian economies like Uganda. For transportation, which is a very big move, yes, we have vehicles and buses here already in Uganda, but are we ready for this transition? Yes, if we put the strategies that we have enshrined in the policies right. One thing is moving to e-mobility doesn't mean all Ugandans are going to wake up in the morning and run and buy cars. Possibly the same people who have cars today are the same people going to just shift to buying what? Cars. So there are two factors here. One, are they going to afford these new equipments, which are cars? Two, do we have electricity available or infrastructure available for people to transit to this transport system that we want them to be? In terms of availability and capacity, given our potential for renewable energy, the short answer to me is yes. Do we have the infrastructure to attain this process as we move forward? It is still a challenge. Reason we don't have all the infrastructure that we need today, I'm glad that the government in the new policy is actually emphasizing on access and extending infrastructure in the electricity sector for us to do this. Because one, even if we get the same cars that are associated with lower emissions or zero emissions, but the roads are still not the same, are not fixed, the potholes are still there, would mean even our cars are going to sit in the traffic jams. We shall end up using more energy than what we should be using, and those are again energy security issues which we need to work on.
Okay.
Right.
And then I'm looking at the global space, pushing for transition away from fossils, and then the reliance on fuel has been obviously dominant.
Right.
When you look at the stats. And electricity has just been utilized at a 2% rate.
Right.
I'm interested in understanding from the global perspective, we are looking at Uganda positioning itself somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the transition is concerned and the security provisions, in utilization of the closer elements that we have, importation of fuel from outside, are we looking at a possibility of taking the shift a lot more cautiously in the long run? Because it's not something we're going to bump away all of a sudden.
That is very correct, Ivan. We are not going to just jump from, our biomass. 9 out of 10 Ugandans today still go back to bioenergy for energy needs. And they are just not going to switch because the global aspirations and also domestic commitments are asking us to go the renewable energy way. This issue comes again to the dimension as I started with, affordability issues, access issues, and availability of this renewable energy. The potential for renewable energy in Uganda is very high. Our supply or source of electricity in Uganda is 92% from renewable energy resources. So potential is there. Question is, can we balance? Can we have the demand? Can we shift Ugandans with alternatives, more modern forms of energy away from biomass? And I'm glad the policy points to this in terms of emphasizing on sustainable use of biomass, because we recognize that we cannot just shift away immediately from what we have. So we need to work on affordability and access issues still for him.
All right. Dr. Sylvia, affordability and access, just like he says, you've been interacting with numerous communities In your own perspective, how inclusive are they? We are looking at urban areas that have a greater demand for energy, irrespective of the form, and then peri-urban areas, plus the rural communities, where one of the most fundamental elements, agriculture, smallholder farmers serving numerous communities across Uganda. How inclusive have they been looked at?
Okay, thank you very much, Ivan. I think that's a very pertinent question. When you talk about inclusivity of, every Ugandan in terms of these interventions in the energy space, I think that's an interesting question because, yes, there have been interventions and initiatives to, address the aspect of inclusivity. And when you look at our electrification initiatives, for example, we have this free connection. And that free connection is, aimed at ensuring that every household has access to electricity in a row. And this has been happening through the ERT program, Energy for Rural Transformation, and maybe RIA, which of course has been merged to Ministry of Energy. And besides the free connection policy, there are also initiatives in terms of the tariffs. I think Dr. Bernard is very good at explaining that. We have, different clusters of tariffs. For those maybe the very poor ones in Uganda, they are charged about 250 shillings per unit for the first 15. And we also have that cooking policy for households that can cook. If you use electricity, for example, maybe for commercial cooking, let's say, or even for just commercial, for cooking in the household, the tariff is subsidized, So I think it goes to about 400 something. And then the rest, of course, you pay for that higher tier. So, and those all are aimed at ensuring that actually people are included in this electrification and also to increase usage. Besides just access, people must use and demand for more, okay? But besides that, I think when we talk about inclusivity, there is still a challenge. Like I said, affordability is very, very core. Now, the 250 per unit, first 15 units, is not something that is going to push productive use. That could maybe just encourage lighting. And that also encourages, laxity on the side of the end user, because then people limit usage to the first 15, where they maybe get only 10,000 and buy the 15 and use that the whole month. It doesn't benefit the supplier in any way. And in terms of productive use, I think just besides just access and all that, we also need to look at some bit of end user financing that, enables, commercial users maybe to get these, appliances that can enable them to use this electricity for productive activities. We call them the productive use appliances. Things like refrigerators for rural communities, they need maybe solar powered because we have now, a move to mini grids to serve these as solar powered mini grids to serve the rural communities as one of the interventions to ensure inclusion of the rural people. But where are the appliances? Most of these projects did not have the PU component, and that affected again. So it focused more on lighting, and for those that already are maybe operating as commercial users.
All right. I'll cross over to you, Doctor, just before we head for the break. She just mentioned about tariffs, and this is one key area in the energy utilization space.
Right.
Just recently, the Minister for Energy highlighted one of the most critical concerns, that's theft and vandalism. And she cautioned, why would you be asking or anticipating lower tariffs when we are having damage on the infrastructure, which is so crucial for the transmission and distribution.
Right.
I'm interested in understanding, for Uganda's case, what would be the biggest reasons for the theft and vandalism?
Ivan, thank you. And to our viewers this evening, it is a complicated issue. Uganda is in a situation, and actually the minister is very right. We have the government on this side, and the power supply transmitters, transmission, and the distribution companies. They are saying we cannot lower the tariff or price of electricity in Uganda because Ugandans are stealing electricity. Ugandans here who are end users are saying electricity is very expensive we cannot afford it, and so some of us who have ways of bypassing and stealing it, we are going to do it. It's a very complicated equation. Now, somebody who steals electricity does not do it out of accident. They know what they are doing. Question is in the economic sense, like you are actually highlighting. It is like waking up in the night and you go and steal something from your pocket or your wallet, and then in the morning you come saying, who has stolen something from me? People who are stealing and vandalizing electricity infrastructure are causing a lot of economic losses, both to the country, but also for the safety of other Ugandans as well. Because we are looking at disruptions, sometimes you receive very bad quality electricity in your supply systems, because just it's not even a distribution or transmission issue, but some neighbor is tapping illegally from your line, which reduces or puts the pressure on that system, and you end up getting cut off or actually getting bad quality electricity. You charge a phone and it does not get filled up, but it is charging, and those are losses that are communicated to this. In fact, it has been estimated for the 2 weeks we had disruptions in 2021 because of a heavy vandalism on Naluwale and the Kira power plant transmission lines. We suffered about 4 billion Ugandan shillings equivalent of GDP that would have had. People lost businesses, people lost merchandise because power was unfriendly. It increased their cost of operation, which was really very heavy in terms of economic possibilities that we have to do. The caution here remains: vandalism, theft do not translate into any progress for any society or country. These are losses which we need to go beyond what we see or benefits that we see today. Because people who are stealing electricity, like you have asked, are those who are dealing in scrap material, metal material. They are the same people who turn around tomorrow electricity is not there, forgetting that they have vandalized the equipment that brings electricity, and then they come and say government is not supplying what? Electricity to run our businesses. So that contradiction needs to be handled.
Well, for South Africa, one of the reasons for the enormous vandalism is in regard to the search for money, income. When we come back from the break, I'll be interested in understanding whether poverty is one of the underlying factors for the vandalism. And then, okay, let's first head for the break. Then when we come back, the conversation will be getting even bigger because we are looking at energy security and then the disruptions. Internationally, we have global supply disruptions. The shippers are not willing to head where they usually used to for various reasons. And then even locally, so many other factors that are, and then you've mentioned the vandalism, those are all disruptions. So when we come back, the conversation will be getting even bigger. But first, the break.
Smart 24, driving business.
Jovia.
Ng'oyolekera ku lugendo luno olw'obulamu, nkuwa ekirabo eky'amaanyi agatazizibwa, amaanyi okulabibwa n'okuwulirwa mu mawanga ageewala ennyo, okutuuka buli wamu nga yadde togenzeeyo, ensi yonna ng'ekuli mu ngalo. Okutambula mu biseera n'okumanya buli kimu ekirina okumanyibwa. Jovia, kino kye kirabo kyange gy'oli.
Tewali kkubo ku ki gy'osobola okukola ku mukutu nnandameggwa ogwa MTN. Luxury redefined at Seasan Hotel as you indulge in the splendor of elegant living fit for the royalty that you are. Step into comfort, pampering and blissful customer-centric service as you select from our range of comfy, exquisite living quarters furnished to meet with your royal preference. Surrounded by scenic beauty, our tropical setting allows you to escape the glamorous ordeal of city life. Our ambient green gardens will guide you to a place of revitalizing rest. The 3-star restaurant caters to your palate, serving your choice menu ranging from exotic cuisines to local delicacies. Our chefs will serve you full course meals for a truly out-of-this-world culinary experience. Our fully stocked bar to whet your throat, from renowned global brand whisks, brandies, gins, beers and wines to our locally celebrated beverages, you will not lack for any brewage. It's an all-new experience in the East at Seasan Hotel. So visit today at Plot 15 to 19 Spire Road, Ginger, or contact us on +256 751 719 960 and +256 785 354 614 for reservations. Seasan Hotels, luxury redefined.
We have the best services here at Hotel Mara.
You are very rude, Mr. Chief. I want her to have longer nails like those ones.
Like mine.
So that she can tickle me in the back.
You're serious? I don't have that kind of money.
Then you are going to wash the dishes.
Me?
Waitress, how will you come?
But my mouth doesn't smell.
Hey. It doesn't.
Steve, you're like my dad.
Shia, is your father as handsome as me?
Smart 24, driving business.
All right, welcome back from the break. To those that have just joined us, this is the green economy, and we are looking into energy security. We are looking at access, affordability, and availability. But we are looking at as well so many other areas that tend towards energy security. That's the disruptions.
Right.
International global contestations leading up to supply chain challenges, and then locally, we as well have so many other challenges. Before heading into the break, we were looking into vandalism and theft, which are so definitive factors as far as energy security is concerned.
Right.
And I'm interested in understanding, this is 2023. The last time I interacted with the PSST, he indicated that the country's GDP is at the $50 billion mark. That seems progress from 2000, for instance, where we had it at $6.1 billion. I'm interested in understanding, does the destructive tendencies of vandalism and theft, can they be linked to poverty or insufficient jobs, as per se, locally?
Yes, domestically and just actually within even the region, that is the major reason people are engaging in these very undesirable practices. Lack of jobs, at the same time they need to survive, means they are pushed harder for alternatives, cheaper ones that turn out to be costly for the economy, including engaging in vandalism and theft. So this calls for an overall sector-wide or economy-wide approach to managing this. For as long as we continue to have a working age population that is idle meaning they are not having engaged in any productive activities, then we are likely to have to suffer these social effects of a growing population that we have here today. And that is what the emphasis should be, even the energy policy. These sectors are interlinked. We cannot handle the energy sector in isolation from the other sectors that have to translate into job creation and even economic security for the population.
All right. Dr. Sylvia, there's something interesting. Before we headed for the break, Dr. Bernard said we would be stealing from ourselves if at all we are stealing electricity. And then I'm interested in knowing if someone is stealing electricity and putting it to, should I say, productive use. We have millers producing maize flour and the catalog of other products. They are using it for lighting. Are we throwing a burden on the economy?
Thank you very much, Ivan. I would say yes. Because, I mean, if we talk about sustainable development, you know, it's about using one of the resources, which is energy, to propel development and maybe community transformation. But for that to happen, even the supply side must be sustainable. So if the commercial users and the households are tapping on electricity, stealing it to put into the productive sectors, then the question is, how then are these suppliers and investors going to survive? Because they need the income from the end users to sustain and maintain the supply. And if there is a lot of stealing, it puts the burden on the economy. Because for I think a very long time we've been on concession kind of supply whereby government has to pay prior to use. So that energy used and paid for, the burden goes to the government. Government has to bear it. Or if that is not the case, then the few users who are, you know, have integrity and they pay for the energy, it goes to them. That's why the bill is always very high, because we are taking care of those who are stealing. We are also paying for their bills.
Okay.
So it puts a burden on the economy in terms of development, because then the issue of demand will not grow, and also the income will not be there to sustain the operations. Yeah.
All right. Judging by the metrics of availability, whereby most urban areas have access to electricity, the rural areas, peri-urban areas, likewise, rural electrification is doing a job as well. In your own perspective, have the different communities utilized the resources productively?
I would say yes and no. When you talk about yes, have they utilized the resources productively? I mean, since they launched the ERT program, ERT 1, 2, 3 now, which ended recently, there's been extension in rural areas, and people have tapped into the grid. And when you just take a ride across the country and reach in some of those small centers in the rural setting, you really see some sort of economic activities. The small ones, like you said, grain milling, say dairy cooling, the cooling chains, maybe processing and all that kind of sort, you know. And to me, yes, they are using it productively, because if people are able to start up welding kind of businesses, maybe Baba, the restaurant, the cafes and all these, which were not there previously, that is a source of income, and that is a commercial activity, and we call it productive use. But on the other hand, also, there has been a challenge. These activities are sort of very micro, and in terms of demand, they are not really driving the demand that is required to move forward in terms of transition. Okay. You know, and perhaps this could be because, you know, like I said, the end user, maybe consumer financing is not yet very elaborate to enable these people acquire productive use appliances. And also, the markets are not very elaborate. And as a country, we have also not done our part in terms of, you know, mapping out which kind of productive use activities should be promoted in which kind of, you know, region and so forth, so that we know what kind of initiatives and incentives to send your subsidies that are required there. So it is still a yes and no.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Dr. Bernard, we wouldn't be talking about energy security if you're not looking at growing demand and then the numbers tending towards demand for services that require utilization of energy. Right. We've just talked about tariffs, and I'm certain you were part of the energy policy document that was released early this year. And then you highlighted essentials as far as electric billing schemes are concerned. I'm interested in understanding, in your own documentation, what were you seeking and the achievements in the long run?
Thank you, Ivan, on that question. We had a challenge which has been going on from the side of government and also end users of electricity. Like I started, they are saying electricity is expensive for us end users to afford. So why these theft and vandalism issues? Because we have electricity there, but people in one or the other are either shy or are not actually using electricity. Right now, as we speak, about 800 megawatts is almost collapsing to what we call deemed demand. These have electricity available, but which we are not what? Using. So they were pushed by a question of affordability. We have tried to put laws and regulations to restrain theft, but it's still going on. We have intervened with technology-related interventions to help people not stop or minimize electricity theft, but we are still seeing it. So we revisited our, as a process, we're just looking for, are there ways of handling this issue, the affordability question, by looking at the price, which is the tariff of electricity, and see where we can hit a balance. So the cost of a unit of electricity in Uganda you pay today for, it has 3 items. One, the cost of producing that unit, including carrying it from where it is generated up to your house or your premise. The second part is the tax, which is VAT, the value-added tax, like any other commodity which is taxed in Uganda when you consume or buy it, which is 18%. And then the other item is the service fee, which is for this operators or transmitters and the distributors to maintain their system to bring electricity to you. So we tried to look if we removed or revised some of these numbers, would it work? On the cost of electricity generation and whatever, it was almost impossible, because below any rate that we see today, which is actually already subsidized for some units, would not make generators and suppliers of electricity actually operate. Okay. So the issue came to VAT, which is a tax, but this is obligatory, or this is a law that you cannot just wake up and keep swapping. Yes, Minister and Finance can push Parliament to say revise here and here, but this is what it implies year in, year out, which may not work. So the service fee was really a very small consideration, to the extent that even if we removed it, the unit price may not be exactly. So in all these, we are looking at what are these options, what are the ways we can do to end for end users, so that we stimulate demand for electricity, so that it is profitable for the supplier, but at the same time affordable for me who is using electricity. And this is where the conversation is still on. It is not still ended. We are still considering options. This is where we are talking of transition to even other forms of energy, so that we give a balance between all these energy forms that we have in the renewable energy space.
All right. You just mentioned something in regard to 800 megawatts deemed energy. Dr. Sylvia, I won't throw this question to him. I'll pass it over to you. Does the fact that we have deemed energy or surplus and all that synchronize well with the conversation that usually regards energy poverty in Uganda?
To me?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, when we talk about energy poverty in Uganda, it could be flipping a coin, the other side of energy security. because the estimations are that in Uganda currently we have about 66% of the population that is energy poor, multidimensional energy poor. And within that population, we have those that are poor because they don't have the money to afford, but we also have those that can afford, but they don't have the electricity due to different factors, which we may not go into. And often we use the word, even the rich cry. They have the money. You are living in a locality or a community where the grid is not there, so you have no access. And sometimes the kind of solar lamps that are getting there cannot support maybe the kind of load that you require to power your household or to power your business. So talking about energy poverty, dimly power could be one of the indicators of energy poverty, because if people are not able to consume the power, the indication is that they are not able to afford, or they don't have the ability to afford to use this power. Right. And energy poverty has also dimensions, like he has said, there is affordability. If people are unable, for example, you, Ivan, we could call you a middle-income man or, person in Uganda, but then if you're spending, for example, more than 10% of your income on energy, say for cooking, for lighting, and so forth, you are energy poor. Okay. Yes. But also we have that other population that are not even able to afford the bare minimum. And because of lack of demand, slow growth in demand, we don't have activities in Uganda that are, generating and pushing for demand for electricity. It is obvious that there will be power.
Okay. You said locally the demand is still low. Globally, we are looking at developments, the East African power pool. Yeah. Regional from the Indian Ocean all the way to West Africa. That's all demand. Before I get to you, Doctor, still with Dr. Sylvia, we had 600 billion Ugandan shillings invested in the development initiative for Northern Uganda. And one of the key areas that they tackled was energy. And 25, for instance, 25 mini-grids in Lamu. In your own perspective, have these people utilized such resources effectively, and how best could they in the maybe near term or mid term?
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, our viewers. This is a very important issue. I think for quite some time, like you said, they've implemented a number of mini-grids in the northern region, and they're still launching more. There are quite a number of clusters that the ministry is targeting. And talking about whether people have benefited or not, I would say yes. I've just had a tour in northern Uganda, I think last week. And you really see change in terms of the livelihoods, in terms of the structuring, in terms of, there is change. People are benefiting from the power. I was shocked when I reached, Gulu, Ajumani, and all the streets are well lit, So, and testimonies from the people from Gulu, tell us that actually they are benefiting, especially in terms of, productive use. People say, like one of the chairpersons, LOC1 in some village called Peyota, seems to say that, previously as smallholder farmers would do so much and, we earn so little. But with this electricity now, we are able to actually increase our productivity. We can work at night, we can work in the evening, we can preserve, we can add value, we can process, and we can also transport these products to, get better markets. So they are fetching more. So they are getting income, and also there have been jobs. There are quite a number of people now who are employed because of mini-grids, say that they are maintaining installation and all that. They are getting jobs. And also, I think they have really benefited in terms of value addition. That's what I would say. Yes, there is some benefit. But like I said, there are still some issues. The benefits would be much bigger than that. But most of the end users who are supposed to be beneficiaries of these, mini-grid services actually lack appliances to use the energy. Because for you to use these energy services, you must be having a bulb to light. You must be having a flat iron to iron, a refrigerator to, all those things help us increase demand and to use electricity. But, there's been some sort of a limitation in terms of tapping into, productive use activities, like maybe intentional funding for productive use, say appliances, say even awareness in the population. You know, in our country, people think electricity is for lighting. You know, they think it's for lighting. People hardly think about productive use. People hardly think about how can I use this energy to improve my livelihood, to generate some income, to make my life better. And that is what productive use is all about. So as long as we don't move them from that kind of thinking to a thinking where they are using electricity for purely economic kind of livelihood, we shall continue with this dimmed energy. So the mini grids are doing very well, but there are quite a number of challenges, and this has also limited the demand again, or the load from the grids to the end user, because people either are not very aware or they don't have the finances, and also some bit of regulation. There's no clear regulation on mini grids in terms of, for example, how much should a mini grid produce, what is the maximum expected, and all those cause some sort of hurdles here and there.
All right, because of time, we're not going to be heading a lot more further, but Dr. Bernard, maybe your very last words in this energy security conversation and all that.
Economic growth and green growth going to be achieved for countries like Uganda when all sectors are cohesive in terms of managing these challenges. And so security of energy or security of electricity that we are looking at remains part and parcel of the process that we are looking at for creation of jobs, to industrialize our economy as enshrined in the different policies, but also for environmental sustainability that we are looking at. So it starts with handling the challenges and the strategies. Possibly one push from this discussion to this evening is the issue again relating to theft and vandalism of electricity. Once we don't manage this, we are pushing the government, we are pushing the economy harder, making it more costly, making it more energy intensive than what it should be for us to get the jobs that we want, the clean industrialization that we are looking at as we push for energy transition.
All right. The dialogue won't get any further than this, but just before we call it off, there is one area that I would have loved to throw before these people. Right. That's the fact that in 2020, the most crucial element as far as renewable energy is concerned, especially hydroelectricity, water, was commodified and thrown onto the stock exchange. Right. But that is a conversation that maybe we shall look into in other day. However, as far as Uganda is concerned, you are looking at the growing demand. Agriculture, which was at the bottom of the chain, and transport, for instance, as early as maybe 2012. Right now the situation has changed. We have Kayola, Kira Motors, we have mechanized agriculture, irrigation farming and all that. So it's a question of how secure are we and how are we utilizing the energy. The last ones? Because of time. Please wrap it up.
Second. Yeah, thank you very much, Ivan, and thank you, our viewers. Today we are talking about energy security, a very pertinent, component in our transition journey. But for me as a person, my takeaway is that if we are to achieve energy security that is concerned with SDG 7, SDG 13, and SDG 11, one of the mechanisms to count or even achieve that is productive use. Now, when you talk about theft, stealing, as long as we don't empower people economically, and that is promoting productive use, energy security is far from, being achieved. Okay. And for me, I really push for this to the government and every partner who is concerned in the energy sports to think about productive use component.
All right, the green economy, Ivan Tivenkana, Dr. Sarah, Dr. Bernard. We say good night and Merry Christmas.
Thank you.